Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I descend upon you like the magical content creating equivalent of an angry seagull today. Maybe a hawk, or an eagle, or whatever bird is most likely to descend upon you and cup your balls and shout GG get wrecked scrub. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi, and welcome to today's video where I bring you some gameplay with Green White Collected Company. It's very similar to Todd Stevens' list. Whilst he has moved towards playing Bant in recent times, I avoid spell quite like the fucking plague because it's the worst card ever printed. The deck is a mid-range deck designed to out mid-range and out value even the most mid-range of mid-range decks and value decks, with your mid-range and value mid-range. Those words mean nothing now. It should be able to put up a fight against the slower Death Shadow decks, provide a warm and fuzzy feeling for all those that watch as I make all the value and rub myself in it. Plan is to generate all the value with Courser and Tracker, which basically builds your own brainstorm in Modern. The plan is to smash face with big goifs, trackers and knights after grinding out the resources and getting far ahead on board. I do not want to see a Wrath of God in the stack because that probably means that I am dead. I keep a perfectly acceptable accelerant hand with no payoff and find myself against a similar green-white X deck of sorts, probably Abzan Company at a guess. I get hit by a roided up Kitchen Finks and look at my opponent's Gathering Township with a real sense of dread and fear. I need to Ghost Court that soon or it will just kill me. He passes with 4 mana up, signaling Coco. I play a turn 3 Azusa following up from my turn 2 Courser, and then play a fetch land off the top of my deck, which allows me to shuffle with a Tarmogoyf resting there that I can see thanks to the Courser. This allows me to find more lands from Azusa and dig me deeper into my deck. I hit a Ghost Quarter, followed by a Horizon Canopy off the top, which feels really good. The sheer level of value here is fantastic. I attack into an obvious company with a roided up Centaur and let him spin the wheel. It becomes apparent that he's on the new hotness, the infinite mana combo featuring Devoted Druid, Vizier Remedies, and everyone's favourite bipedal siege engine bastard, Walking Ballista. He chooses not to block with his combo pieces quite wisely, and I get to connect for some damage. I decide to blow up by Gathering now before he untaps and threatens activations that will put me out of the game entirely. I am now a sitting duck to the combo kill from my opponent. He Eternal Witnesses a company back to hand and gets into the red zone whilst my only good blocker is tapped. I play a forest at the top of my deck, seal out the Reliquary and draw it with Horizon Canopy to get a real threat. I find another fetch land which I play and crack to look for a remove on top of my deck or another land for value. Find Aven Mind Sensor, which is actually perfectly fine in the matchup as it interacts very well with Cord and potentially Eldritch Evolution depending on what my opponent's build is. This turn I play the Knight that I found and a Scoos with mana up to disrupt the Finks combo if he has or goes for that. He then Cocos in his main phase into both Vizier and Kitchen Finks. Vizier plus the Druid means that infinite mana is now online. He then proceeds to have the time of his life. Personally, as much as I love green-white value decks, and having a combo in them seems sweet in order to be able to just oops I win when your opponent's tapped out or not got the interaction, my experiences with Melira Company online have been awful. I streamed it once and I timed out a lot because it's clunky and cumbersome, and the client really makes me not want to play it even if I do think the deck is pretty good. Anyway, he makes a shit ton of mana, plays a Dustwatch Recruiter and then activates it until he recruits a Walking Ballista into his team. He then plays the Ballista for enough to kill me and end the game there. Game 2, I keep an accelerant hand with the company for payoff, a Scoos to interrupt the traditional Kitchen Finks combo, and a piece of sideboard take and engineered explosives. I lead with Hierarch into Scoos, while our opponent leads with Hierarch into Devoted Druid. Jesus, the combo is real. I tap 2 mana of the same colour and accidentally cast my engineered explosives for 1 here. The intention was to have it on 2 and blow it up so that he goes to cast another potential combo piece, or an enabler like Company or Cord, I'd stop him. But instead I brain fart, mess up the interface and hopefully confuse my opponent with intimidation tactics. I can pretend it's mind games, but really I'm just really bad. He passes with mana up for Cord or Company and I keep cracking him with my Scoos. I Company in response to his fetch land in the hope that I will hit an Aven Mind Sensor and, Well, I do. Mind Sensor is slammed to play whilst Ewa gets back my company and Mind Sensor stops him finding a land. Now I feel like I have a chance after my hideous misplay initially. He casts a Cord for 2 and finds Dusk Watch Recruiter, which is unfortunately part of the combo we're trying to disrupt through Search Hate. He then casts an Archangel of Thune, telling us that he's also playing the Spike Feeder combo, and I feel a little bit sick in my own mouth. Archangel makes our 3-turn clock in the air remarkably worse. Fortunately, as long as he doesn't combo kill us, Selfless Spirit can provide a blocker that can sacrifice itself in order to avoid him gaining the life. We have a rather average Coco, but it finds another Hierarch, which also allows us to attack with the Scoos and not have him blocked because it's fucking huge. We follow up with the Selfless Spirit after combat, which then feels pretty good, meaning he can't really crack back in for the life that he probably thought he could have done. He once again calls through our Mind Sensor, finding an Eternal Witness to bring back Cord. What he really wanted to find there was Spike Feeder just to combo out and make infinite life and infinite counters on his creatures. He sees our board position as unbeatable and concedes there and then. We mulligan away in no landers, find a tracker and a removal spell under Roger's command. We keep it for fear of a worse 5. We scry Forge to the bottom of our deck in favour of finding acceleration or just gas, and Scoos isn't a bad pickup here. A turn 2 Scoos feels pretty good to be sat behind when your opponent turn 2 is a Viscera Seer. The turn 3 Devoted Druid, however, serves to illustrate just how frustrating Podless Pod, Melira Company, Abzan Coco, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it actually is when we're trying to hate it out or disrupt the combo. It's now able to attack from so many angles, that all of which have their own unique approach and ways to interact with them, that in all honesty it's difficult to interact with. And the deck is super sweet, except for being an absolute bitch to pilot on MTGO. After cracking in with my Scoos, I decided that killing the Devoted Druid is correct here. It means you don't have to live in fear and it slows down his acceleration. I missed 1 point of damage because I'm not doing it after blockers. I am just footloose and playing loose and fancy free. The magic content creating the equivalent of Kevin Bacon. He Fiend Hunters my Scoos, which we are more than okay with considering that the other Scoos is in my hand. There's a safer line of deploying the Scoos here to avoid him comboing, but it's not the best play in terms of tempo or advancing my board state. I instead decide to collect a company into 2 trackers. He untaps and sees this window and casts collect a company of his own, and whiffs. Having your opponent whiff on a collected company is much like pissing your own pants. Although everyone can see it happening, only you know how warm it makes you feel, it also makes me strangely aroused. I then live the dream. I play a 3rd Tireless Tracker. I play a fetch land, trigger, trigger, trigger. I then attack him with 2 of my trackers, crack a fetch, before I can say trigger, trigger, trigger. Again, my opponent concedes under the sheer amount of pure, unadulterated, fantastical value. The circus is in town, and it likes to crack fetch lands and stuff. I don't know where I was going with that.
Welcome to the circus of value!
My opponent cycles a Street Wraith and casts a Visions, making it explicitly clear that he is there to chase the shadows of death. And although it sounds like a DeviantArt or Tumblr account filled with erotic fanfiction about Sonic the Hedgehog's infamous anti-hero counterpart Shadow the Hedgehog, it's actually just a really lame way of saying my opponent is a fucking filthy net decker, playing the latest flavour of the month, Death Shadow. A quick disclaimer, I have no problem with net deckers, not in the slightest. I actually think Desolator Magic is a dickhead, does nothing good for the community or the game. I lead with a bird. The lack of action from my opponent allows me to play a tracker uncontested. He then plays Death Shadow and a Kiln Fiend, which tells us that this is an old school aggro combo centric variant of Death Shadow, and that probably isn't the only copy of Terror Battle Rage in the deck. Lovely. We play a Corsair and look to make a block that will kill his Kiln Fiend. Essentially, I've consigned to the fact that if he can combo out and kill me here, I am dead, and if he doesn't, keeping the Corsair alive allows me the best opportunity to gain back some of the life and create a board position from which I can actually win off of a collected company in my hand. What I don't foresee at this point is a lightning bolt to my poor unsuspecting Birds of Paradise. What did that bird ever do to him? He then casts a Temur Battle Rage, so his double striking Trampler and Death Shadow kill my dude and take me to 6, and I draw a useless Rallier. I slam the Goyf and hope these big butts will keep me safe. Unfortunately, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, or the 3rd copy of Battle Rage for that matter, showing its ugly mug, and I am deader than a Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's campaign after he accidentally killed some poor woman's rabbit with a pogo stick. Apparently. Okay, so my hand is sick, except for the pressure is a little low. I play a tapped land and my opponent half kills himself with a fetch, into shock, into triple cycle of a Street Wraith, into no actual creature. My butthole is clenched, I move from 50p to 5p, but he doesn't play a turn 1 Death Shadow, so we live to collect a company another day. I play a rather pathetic looking Tarmogoyf and get ready to path the ever-loving shit out of anything in his path. The intention here is to smash in and close out the game enough so that the flyer in my hand can be lethal in a couple of turns time once he plays his Death Shadow. He goes to 8 life, casts Serum Visions, and then it gets hit by a 3-4 glyph because he plays nothing. I pass the turn, he casts nothing again, to which I flash in on Mind Center. He doesn't crack his fetch in time, but doesn't have lethal and concedes. Sometimes keeping no threats is not the best idea when playing Magic. I have a borderline keepable hand with acceleration, life gain and search hate, aerial attackers and a Coco. However, the lack of removal or decent turn 2-3 drop in this matchup makes me ship it away. I feel like removal is absolutely vital in killing the more combo Kiln Fiend style Death Shadow decks. I find a load of dorks, a 2-drop and removal spell, and I think, fuck it, let's do it. He plays a turn 2 Kiln Fiend, which I lead high rock into Course of Crufix. He attacks and I say no blocks, and we get smashed over the head with a mutagenic growth, which I was not expecting, I'm not gonna lie, which means we take 6. I had figured we would not just be dead to Terror Battle Rage here, even if he had played land that turn. I hadn't actually factored in Terror Battle Rage plus mutagenic growth plus Thought Scout, for example. Weirdly, he Inquisitions me post-combat, strips away my Remote command, and deploys a Death Shadow. I play a second Course of Crufix and play a fetch land off the top of my deck, gaining 2 life. I crack my fetch, net gaining 1 life, play another Noble and decide not to attack as an unblocked attack would grow his Death Shadow. He plays a second Kiln Fiend and decides that my half-woman, half-horse is all wall and he can't get through favourably. I untap and draw Gathering Township, play it, gain more life and pass back. He plays another Death Shadow and we have a true Mexican standoff. I activate Gavany and boost my team with a steroid. My Horizon Canopy allows him to draw the collected component off my deck and I wait to pull the trigger. He untaps, cycles a Street Wraith and plays a fetch land. He must have been waiting for enough life lost to push these shadows to be legitimate threats. Either that or he found the pump spell that he needs now with Terror Battle Rage to get in there. He then swings in and I cast Company and find not 1, but 2 Eidolon of Rhetoric. Because of my Eidolons, he fails to get enough damage through and he concedes. It looks like he can't handle the hot, steamy double Eidolon action. I mulligan an unkeepable Skoos plus Collected Company hand against a blind opponent. A Noble plus Crucible plus Ghost Quarter hand shows up and I think, well, I kind of want to keep it to see how far I can get with the Crucible, and all we need is some more pressure to back it up. It could wreck some decks in the format over time as well. However, it could just lose to burn. I scry Eternal Witness at the top of my deck in a moment of absolute stupidity, and it only takes me approximately half a second to realise that Eternal Witness is absolutely terrible with his hand, and I hate myself and I wish I was dead. I lead with Noble and my opponent plays Darkslick Shores into Bauble into Opal, and I have literally no idea what the fuck is going on. I draw another land and decide to play it post Crucible in order to get more fetch land thinning on the go. He then plays a Relic of Progenesis which shits on our plans to abuse this Crucible March. I Ghost Quarter him in my end step to try and bait out the Relic full activation. He then single card exiles off of the Relic in response to my Ghost Quarter, which I then crack my fetch land to in order to hope he will do the full sacrifice to net himself the fetch land and the Ghost Quarter for value. And annoyingly, he just doesn't do that. I draw another land and feel pretty salty about this awful keep that I should not have kept. He casts a Tezzerator, Agent of Bolus, and I now know which way my opponent's bread is buttered. This is some form of modern Tezzerator. He ticks up and finds a bauble and plays it. I draw another Hierarch, which is better than a land, but only marginally. I try to slap Tez down a peg or two, only to meet a fatal push. Sadness is placed onto the stack, and unfortunately, Sadness has resolved. I fire off another Ghost Quarter, and recur it, and fire off again in an attempt to test the stress on his basics, but he appears to have many basics. He digs into his library and finds an ensnaring bridge, which is a pretty good way of protecting Tez. Luckily my homeworks can keep him relatively in check, but him threatening an ultimate offer for loyalty means that there is now a sense of inevitability to all this, considering I have no main board answers to the bridge, and Relic keeps my Ghost Quarter plan in check. We draw Tracker, which is pretty good at turning up the pressure and digging for more exotic creatures. Unfortunately, Tracker makes a fatal push and I get a grand total of 1 clue out of him. My Ghost Quarter kills his swamp and he fails to find, meaning he only has 3 basic lands. He then sticks a Thopter Foundry and miraculously, and as if by magic, finds a Sword of the Meek on top of his library with Tez. I play a Corsair, but seriously begin to consider conceding, but decide to give my opponent the chance to mess up. He doesn't. He makes 2 Thopters and then ultimates Tez, doming me for 18 damage. GG, get wrecked, scrub. Game 2, I'm milling away a 1-lander to find EE and Skoos, which is actually pretty good against him. I kept in a couple of paths in case of any worm coils, ravagers or other random spice, and because I had little else to bring in against the deck. EE kills a whole lot of a board of artifacts, and Tezzerator struggles to win without a critical mass of grey and mud coloured permanents on field, while Skoos can play the game with Eat the Sword if you have enough mana to fight the combo. My Skoos gets pushed to death, as does my Knight of the Reliquary, which is pretty tilting. I have no pressure. He plays a bridge and I start slamming every threat I can into play to allow me to get there where possible. A noble hierarch will give me enough colours of mana to pop his bridges with an EE, so that is a possibility once I have enough damage on board to make an alpha swing. He Python leaders my possible scavenging ooze, knowing they are one of my most interactive creatures against this combo. I get to kill Tez before he can empty his hand with the creatures I can attack with under the bridge. He plays a Foundry and I find a timely Stony Silence. I decide that playing the Stony will disrupt his combo and most of his engines, even if it's a non-bow with my EE in hand. He whirls of Invention for 7 through my Mind Sensor, making me fear a Worm Coil or Sundering Titan, but only manages to find a Spellsky. I Coco into Noble and a Kozali, which is a fucking great against the current board. I play a Crucible and he attempts to whirl through my Mind Sensor disruption again. He finds a Welding Jar, which is frustrating as it means I can't blow up his bridge with the Pride Mage, though I don't think Welding Jar was quite what he was going for. I keep playing creatures assuming he does not have Damnation. In the meantime, I poke at him with a 0-1 bird that gains Exalted when it attacks, allowing him to fly in under any bridge and peck at him. Inevitably, he dies to Birds of Paradise beating him down with Exalted. I leave the Noble on the draw and he plays a Pentad Prism, making me fear the early combo. I play Corsa turn 2, revealing a Zeus on top. He does nothing and I play a Tracker and hit a land drop, beating in with a roided up horsey lady who shall forever be known now as Beef Club. He end steps a Wall of Invention using mana from the Prism and tapping it much like Wall of Roots does with Court of Cooling, which is kind of cool. He gets Sword of the Meek, untaps, makes a Foundry and proceeds to make some Thopters. I'm a little bit scared, but I do have Kozali Pride Mage. I untap and play a Fetch. Trigger, trigger. I make an Azusa, play a Ghost Court off the top of my library, trigger, trigger. I see a Knight, which is not what I need. I crack my Verdant Catacombs and grab a Forest, trigger, trigger. I find a Galvany and play that, which again, trigger, trigger. I then attack with a voided up Tireless Tracker before setting my Kusali Pride Mage off to kill the Foundry. I'm now just praying he can't find another Foundry so quickly. He hits me in the air and then needles my Galvany Township like an absolute fucking monster. I untap, play a Fetch Land, trigger, trigger. I draw a card off of a clue to dig deeper and look for another land but only find Teague. I go to combat, but possibly because of the incoming Teague and potential for massive beatdown from my army, he Ghost Quarters himself with the triple blue and whirls for Ensnaring Bridge. I hit him with a Void Rage Azusa and then spend my second main phase drawing and playing the Teague. I find Crucible on top of my deck, like some sort of hallowed magical Christmas land where I get all the value. Sometimes you have to step forward to the gods of worth, kneel down upon the altar and simply ask yourself,
"Please, sir, I want some more."
I play another Noble and crack into him, he blocks, I then realise that the clock really is ticking. I gotta get my game on, I gotta go fast. Of course, while moving at an optimum velocity to ensure certain death of my opponent, I need to ensure I crack clues and get as much value as I can.
Rolling around at the speed of sound. Got places to go, gotta follow my rainbow. Can't stick around, have to keep moving on. Guess what lies ahead? Sonic's the name. One way to find out. Sonic's the name. Keep on moving ahead. Speed's money. No time for guessing. Follow my mistake. Sonic's the name. Speed's money. What you Sonic's the name. Speed's money. Take my Sonic's the name. Speed's money. Sonic's the name. Speed's money. Sonic's the name. Speed's money.
Eventually I get there with Exalted underneath his Ensnaring Bridge with only 7 seconds on the clock. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and didn't think it was too long-winded. I was originally a 5-game league, but I couldn't fit all of them into a reasonable video length. I also beat Burn and got smashed to absolute bits by Tron. I chose these games so they were more entertaining. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe, hit the little bell button to keep yourself notified if I put up videos in future. Like the video, drop me a comment with advice, ideas, general penis-related banter on how much you want to have sex with me, and don't forget, share the video, get your phone out at your cousin's wedding, and show your weird uncle who smells a bit like walnuts that have been left in an ashtray. You might just save his life.